David had always been different from other people. While his friends were busy watching movies or going to parties, he spent his nights looking up at the stars through his telescope. At 32 years old, he worked at a space research center in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. His job was to listen for signals from outer space, hoping to find proof that we're not alone in the universe. Most people thought his work was boring. His coworkers would joke that he talked to his computers more than real people. They weren't wrong. David felt more comfortable with machines and numbers than with small talk and social gatherings. He had tried dating a few times, but it never worked out. Women would get tired of him canceling plans because he got excited about some new discovery or signal from space. The research station where David worked looked like something from a science fiction movie. Giant white dishes pointed toward the sky, slowly moving as they tracked different parts of the universe. The building was old and made weird noises at night. Most of his colleagues went home after their day shift, leaving David alone with the equipment and the endless desert surrounding them. October nights in New Mexico were cold and clear, perfect for his work. On this particular Tuesday night, David was doing his usual routine. He had a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, a half-eaten sandwich, and printouts of data scattered across his desk. The radio equipment hummed quietly in the background, occasionally beeping when it picked up something interesting. Around 11 o'clock, something strange happened. The main computer started showing patterns that David had never seen before. The signal was coming from directly above them, not from deep space like usual. He checked all his equipment twice, thinking something was broken, but everything was working perfectly. The signal got stronger and stronger. David's heart started beating faster. This wasn't like the normal space noise they usually picked up. This was organized, purposeful, almost like someone was trying to communicate. He grabbed his notebook and started writing down everything he could see on the screens. Then, something incredible happened. Through the window, David saw a bright light in the sky. At first, he thought it might be a plane or maybe a shooting star, but the light was moving too slowly and too deliberately. It was getting bigger and brighter, coming straight down toward the desert behind the research station. David knew he should call his supervisor, or maybe even the military. They had procedures for this kind of thing. But curiosity got the better of him. He had spent his whole life wondering if there was life beyond Earth. Now something was literally falling from the sky right outside his workplace. He grabbed a flashlight and his car keys. The old truck started on the third try, and David drove out into the desert, following the dirt roads that led away from the station. His hands were shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. Part of him thought he was going crazy. Maybe he had been working too many late nights and was starting to see things. The bright light had disappeared, but David had a good idea of where it had landed. He drove for about 10 minutes until he saw something that made him stop the truck and just stare. There, sitting in the middle of the desert like it belonged there, was something that definitely wasn't from Earth. The object looked like it was made of crystal and metal mixed together. It was about the size of a small house, but shaped like nothing David had ever seen. It seemed to glow with its own light, not bright enough to hurt his eyes, but definitely not normal. The surface looked smooth and seemed to change colors as he watched it. David sat in his truck for a few minutes trying to decide what to do. Every logical part of his brain told him to drive back to the station and call the authorities. But the curious part of him, the part that had spent years looking for signs of life in the universe, made him get out of the truck. As he walked closer to the strange object, a section of it suddenly became transparent, like a door opening. David stopped walking and held his breath. His flashlight felt useless in his hand. Whatever was about to happen, a simple flashlight, wasn't going to help him. Then she appeared. David had seen beautiful women before, but this was different. She looked human, but not quite. Her skin seemed to have a soft glow, like moonlight on water. Her hair moved even though there was no wind. When she looked at him, her eyes changed colors like looking into a kaleidoscope. But the strangest thing wasn't how she looked. It was how she communicated. She didn't speak with her mouth, but David could hear her voice inside his head. It was the most beautiful sound he had ever experienced, like music and words combined together. "Do not be afraid," her voice said in his mind. I am Zara. I come from far away. David tried to speak but couldn't find his voice. He managed to nod his head to show he understood. Zara stepped closer, and David noticed that she moved differently than humans do. It was like she was floating just slightly above the ground. You work with the listening machines, she continued. You search for us in the stars. Finally, David found his voice. Yes, he whispered. I've been looking my whole life. Zara smiled, and when she did, David felt something change inside him. It wasn't just that she was beautiful or mysterious. There was something about her presence that made him feel calm and excited at the same time, like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment, without knowing it. I should not be here, Zara said, and David could sense sadness in her mental voice. My people do not know about this meeting. It is dangerous for both of us. Why did you come? David asked. I have been watching your world, studying your people, but you are different. Your mind reaches out to the stars with such hope, such wonder. I wanted to meet the human who dreams of the universe. They stood there in the desert, looking at each other across the vast difference between their worlds. David knew this moment would last only minutes, but he also knew it would change his life forever. Will I see you again? He asked. Zara hesitated. I do not know. My mission here will end soon, but... She paused. Perhaps the universe has plans we do not yet understand. Before David could say anything else, Zara stepped back toward her ship. The crystal door began to close. Remember this night. Her voice echoed in his mind as the ship began to glow brighter. Remember that you are not alone. The ship rose silently into the sky and disappeared among the stars, leaving David standing in the desert wondering if any of it had really happened. But his heart was beating so fast he knew it was real. He had found what he had been looking for his whole life, and now he had to figure out how to find it again. The weeks after meeting Zara were the longest of David's life. He went through his daily routine like a robot, but his mind was always somewhere else. His co-workers noticed the change right away. They would find him staring at his computer screens, with a dreamy look in his eyes, or catch him working late into the night when he should have gone home hours ago. You okay, David? His friend Tom asked one afternoon. You've been acting weird lately. More weird than usual, I mean. David just shrugged and mumbled something about being busy with a new project. How could he possibly explain what had really happened? If he told anyone that he had met a beautiful woman from another planet, they would either laugh at him or send him to see a doctor. Maybe both. So David kept his secret and threw himself into his work with a new kind of energy. Every night, he would stay at the research station long after everyone else had gone home. He would point the big radio dishes toward different parts of the sky, hoping to pick up some kind of signal from Zara's world. He tried every frequency he could think of, listened to every strange noise from space, but found nothing. His apartment started to look like a mess. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink, laundry stayed unwashed, and he forgot to buy groceries. All he could think about was that night in the desert and the woman with the changing eyes who had spoken to him with her mind. Sometimes he wondered if he had imagined the whole thing, but deep down, David knew it had been real. He could still remember exactly how Zara's voice had sounded in his head, like beautiful music mixed with words. He could still see the way her ship had glowed in the darkness and how gracefully she had moved. No dream could be that clear and detailed. 3 weeks after their meeting, David was having another sleepless night at the research station. It was almost midnight and he was running yet another scan of the sky when something amazing happened. One of his computers started beeping in a pattern he had never heard before. The signal was coming from directly above Earth, somewhere in orbit. David's hands started shaking as he adjusted the equipment to get a clearer signal. The pattern was complex but organized, definitely not natural space noise. Someone was trying to communicate with him, and he had a good idea who it might be. Then, just like that night in the desert, he heard her voice in his mind. David, Zara said, and his heart nearly jumped out of his chest. I hoped you would be listening. Zara, David said out loud, even though he knew she couldn't hear him speaking normally. I've been trying to find you for weeks. I know. Her voice was warm and gentle in his thoughts. I have been watching your attempts. You are very dedicated. Where are you? David asked, looking up at the ceiling as if he could see through it to the stars. My ship is in orbit around your planet. I am supposed to be studying your people from a safe distance, but I find myself thinking about our meeting more than I should. David felt a flutter of excitement in his stomach. She had been thinking about him too. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you either, he admitted. There was a pause before Zara responded. This is dangerous for both of us, David. My people have strict rules about contact with other species. What I did that night was against our laws. Then why are you talking to me now? David asked. Another pause. Because I cannot help myself. You showed me something I had never experienced before. Your curiosity, your wonder about the universe had touched something in my heart that I did not know existed. David sat back in his chair, amazed. Here he was, having a conversation with someone from another world, and she was telling him that he had affected her emotionally. It was like something from his wildest dreams. Tell me about your world, David said. Tell me about your people. Zara's mental voice became excited, like a child sharing her favorite story. My planet is called Lumina. It is much older than Earth, and our civilization has existed for thousands of your years. We live in harmony with nature and with each other. There is no war, no hunger, no hatred like on your world. That sounds incredible, David said. What do you do there? I am what you might call a scientist and explorer. My job is to study other worlds and learn about different forms of life. I have visited many planets, but Earth is special. Your species is so young but so full of potential, so much emotion and creativity. They talked for hours that night. Zara told David about her world's crystal cities that floated in the clouds, about their technology that was powered by thought and emotion, and about her people who lived for hundreds of years and formed deep connections that lasted lifetimes. David shared stories about Earth, about human art and music, about the way people fell in love and built families, about their dreams and fears. He told her about his own lonely life and how he had always felt different from other people. On my world, Zara said, we believe that every soul has a match somewhere in the universe, someone who completes them perfectly. I never believed this until I met you. David's heart started beating faster. What are you saying? I am saying that meeting you has changed me in ways I cannot explain. When I am supposed to be working, I find myself wondering what you are doing. When I should be preparing reports for my superiors, I am instead thinking about your smile and the kindness in your eyes. The weeks that followed became a routine for David. Every night after his coworkers went home, he would establish contact with Zara's ship. They would talk for hours about everything and nothing. She taught him about the stars and the other worlds she had visited. He shared human music with her by playing it near his radio equipment, and she was amazed by the emotions it contained. Your species creates beauty from pain, she observed after listening to a sad song. On Lumina, we avoid pain, but you transform it into something meaningful. That's what makes us human, I guess, David said. We feel everything deeply, the good and the bad. I am beginning to understand that, Zara replied. Since meeting you, I have felt things I never knew were possible. Joy that makes my heart race, longing that keeps me awake, and something else, something I think you humans call love. David nearly fell out of his chair. Love? Is that not what this feeling is? This need to be near you, to share every thought and experience with you, to know everything about your life and dreams. David smiled in the darkness of the research station. Yes, Zara. That's exactly what love is. Then I love you, David, from Earth. Even though it is impossible, even though we are from different worlds, even though my people would never understand. I love you too, David whispered, more than I ever thought possible. As the weeks turned into months, their secret relationship deepened. But David knew that this couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, something would have to change. 2 months had passed since David and Zara started their secret conversations, and their nightly talks were no longer enough. The longing to see each other in person grew stronger with each passing day. David found himself staring at the desert, outside his window during work, remembering that magical night when they first met. "I wish I could see you again," David said during one of their late-night conversations. "Talking like this is wonderful, but I miss seeing your face." There was a long pause before Zara responded. "I have been thinking the same thing. But it is so dangerous, David. If my commander discovers that I have been making unauthorized contact with your world, the consequences would be severe." "What kind of consequences?" David asked, worry creeping into his voice. "At best, I would be removed from this mission and sent back to Lumina in disgrace. At worst..." Zara's mental voice trailed off. "Let us not think about the worst." Despite the risks, neither of them could resist the pull they felt toward each other. A week later, Zara made a decision that would change everything. "Tomorrow night," she said during their usual conversation. "Meet me at the same place where we first saw each other. But David, you must be very careful. No one can know about this." David's heart raced with excitement and fear. "Are you sure about this?" "No," Zara admitted, "but I cannot stay away from you any longer. Being near you feels like coming home to a place I never knew I was looking for." The next evening, David left work early and drove out into the desert. He had told his co-workers that he wasn't feeling well, which wasn't entirely a lie. His stomach was full of butterflies and his hands kept shaking from nervousness and anticipation. The desert looked different at sunset than it had that night months ago. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the air was warm instead of cold. David parked his truck in the same spot and waited. He didn't have to wait long. A familiar glow appeared in the darkening sky, growing larger as Zara's ship descended. This time, David wasn't scared. He was excited to see the woman who had captured his heart across the vast emptiness of space. Zara emerged from her ship, looking even more beautiful than David remembered. In the soft light of the desert evening, her skin seemed to shimmer like water, and her eyes reflected the colors of the sunset. She moved toward him with that same graceful glide, but this time she seemed nervous too. "Hello, David," she said, speaking out loud this time instead of just in his mind. Her voice was like music, soft and melodic with an accent he couldn't identify. "Hello, Zara," David replied, suddenly feeling shy. "I can't believe you're really here." They stood facing each other for a moment, both unsure of what to do next. Then Zara stepped closer and reached out to touch David's face with her hand. Her skin was warm and felt like silk. "You are exactly as I imagined," she said softly, "but also somehow more real than I expected." David put his hand over hers, marveling at how perfectly it seemed to fit. "I've dreamed about this moment every night since we met." They spent the next few hours walking through the desert together, talking and laughing like old friends. Zara was fascinated by everything about Earth. She picked up rocks and examined them closely, asked David to name all the plants they passed, and stood very still to listen to the sounds of desert animals in the distance. "Your world is so alive," she said, kneeling down to watch a small lizard scurry across the sand. "On Lumina, everything is peaceful and orderly, but here, life fights to survive and grows in the most unexpected places. It is beautiful in a way I never understood before." "Tell me more about your home," David said as they sat on a large rock looking up at the stars together. Zara pointed to a cluster of stars in the eastern sky. "There, beyond those lights, you can see past the edge of what your telescopes can detect. Lumina orbits a star that shines with blue light. Our cities are built from crystals that grow naturally from our planet's surface, and they change colors with our emotions." "What color would they be right now?" David asked. Zara looked at him with those amazing color-changing eyes. "Right, now they would be the warm gold of happiness, mixed with the deep purple of love." Their secret meetings became a regular thing. Every few days, when Zara could slip away from her duties, she would land in their special spot in the desert. David would drive out to meet her, and they would spend precious hours together under the stars. During these meetings, Zara taught David incredible things about the universe. She showed him how to see beyond the visible light spectrum, revealing colors and patterns in the night sky that human eyes couldn't normally detect. She explained how her people traveled between stars and how they had learned to live in harmony with the natural forces of their world. "We lived for many centuries," Zara told him one night as they lay on a blanket, looking up at the Milky Way. "When we choose a life partner, it is for our entire existence. We bond so deeply that we can feel each other's emotions even when we are far apart." "That sounds amazing," David said, "but also a little scary. What if you choose wrong?" "We do not choose wrong," Zara said simply. "When you meet your true match, you know it immediately. There is no doubt, no uncertainty. Your souls recognize each other." David turned to look at her. "Is that what happened when we met?" Zara met his eyes. "Yes. From the moment I saw you, standing in the desert that first night, I knew you were different from any being I had ever encountered, not just because you are human, but because something in your spirit called to something in mine." As the weeks passed, their relationship deepened in ways that surprised them both. David learned that despite her advanced civilization and long lifespan, Zara was curious about the simple pleasures of human life. She loved earth music, especially the sad songs that spoke of longing and loss. She was fascinated by human food and the way different flavors could trigger memories and emotions. But their happiness was shadowed by growing danger. Zara began to worry that her commander, Vex, was becoming suspicious of her behavior. Her mission reports were supposed to focus on human technology and social structures, but she found herself writing more and more about human emotions and relationships. "Vex has been asking questions about my research," Zara told David during one of their meetings. "He wants to know why I am spending so much time studying human emotional responses. I am running out of scientific excuses." "What happens if he finds out about us?" David asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "If he discovers that I have been making personal contact with a human, I would be charged with contamination of a primitive species. The punishment could be exile from Lumina forever or worse." "What's worse than exile?" Zara looked away. "They could erase my memories. Everything I am, everything I feel, could be wiped clean. I would still exist, but I would not be me anymore." David felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night air. The thought of losing Zara was bad enough, but the idea that she might forget him completely, forget their love, was unbearable. "Then we have to be more careful," he said, taking her hand in his. "Or we have to make a choice," Zara replied quietly. "This cannot continue forever, David. Eventually my mission here will end and I will be recalled to Lumina. When that happens, we will be separated by distances that even our technology cannot quickly cross." David squeezed her hand tighter. "Then we'll figure something else out. I'm not losing you, Zara, I can't." As they held each other under the alien stars, both of them knew that their time together was running out. But neither of them was prepared for how quickly everything would change, or the impossible choices they would soon have to make. David woke up to his phone ringing at 6 in the morning. He had only gotten 3 hours of sleep after another late-night meeting with Zara, and his body felt like it was made of lead. The caller ID showed his supervisor's number, which was strange because work didn't start for another 3 hours. "David, we need you to come in early today," his boss said without any greeting. "There's been some unusual activity picked up by our satellite partners. Government people want to review all our recent monitoring data." David's blood turned cold. Government people? Yeah, some kind of special task force. They're asking about any strange signals or unexplained readings from the past few months. You've been doing most of the night monitoring, so they want to talk to you specifically. David tried to keep his voice steady. "Okay, I'll be there in an hour." After hanging up, David sat on the edge of his bed with his head in his hands. This was exactly what he had been afraid of. Somehow, someone had noticed the unusual activity around the research station. Maybe they had detected Zara's ship, or maybe they had picked up traces of their communication signals. He quickly got dressed and drove to work, his mind racing with worry. When he arrived at the station, he saw 3 black cars parked outside, and several people in dark suits walking around with electronic equipment. His stomach dropped even further. The next few hours were the longest of David's life. The government agents asked him detailed questions about every signal he had monitored, every unusual reading, every deviation from normal patterns. David tried to answer honestly without giving away anything about Zara, but it was like walking through a minefield. "We're particularly interested in any signals that seem to come from Earth orbit rather than deep space," one of the agents said, watching David's face carefully. "Our satellites have detected some anomalies that suggest an unauthorized object has been operating in our atmosphere." "I haven't seen anything like that," David lied, hoping his voice sounded convincing. "Most of what I monitor comes from much further away." After what felt like forever, the agents finally left. But David knew this was just the beginning. They would be back, and next time they might have more specific information. He had to warn Zara immediately. That night, David tried to establish contact with Zara's ship, but there was no response. He tried different frequencies, different times, but heard nothing. Panic started to set in. Had something happened to her? Had her commander discovered their relationship? 3 days passed without any word from Zara. David barely slept or ate, spending every free moment trying to reach her. His co-workers noticed his strange behavior, but he brushed off their concerns with excuses about being tired or stressed. Finally, on the 4th night, Zara's voice appeared in his mind, but she sounded different, scared and urgent. "David, we have very little time," she said without any of her usual warmth. "My commander has discovered evidence of unauthorized surface contact. My mission has been terminated, and we are being recalled to Lumina immediately." David felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "When?" "Tomorrow night. But that is not the worst of it. Vex suspects that I have formed an emotional attachment to someone on your world. If he can prove it, I will face memory reconditioning." "What's that?" David asked, though he already knew from their previous conversations. "They will erase everything I am, my memories, my personality, my feelings. I will still exist, but I will not be me anymore. I will not remember you or our time together or what it feels like to love someone so deeply that it changes your entire understanding of existence." David stood up from his desk so quickly that his chair fell over. "There has to be something we can do, some way to fight this." "There is one possibility," Zara said, and her mental voice became even more serious. "But it would require a sacrifice that I cannot ask you to make." "Tell me." "I could take you with me." David's heart stopped. "Take me with you? To Lumina?" "My people have the technology to modify your biology so that you could survive on our world. You could live as long as we do, breathe our air, adapt to our environment. But David, if you made this choice, you could never return to Earth. You would be leaving your world, your species, everything you have ever known." David sat down heavily in his chair. Leave Earth forever? Leave behind his job, his few friends, the only world he had ever known? It seemed impossible. But the alternative was losing Zara forever, and that seemed even more impossible. "How long do I have to decide?" he asked. "I will come to our meeting place tomorrow night, 1 hour before my ship is scheduled to depart. If you are there, I will know your answer. If you are not," Zara's voice broke slightly. "If you are not, I will understand. What I am asking is too much." "Zara, wait." But the connection was already gone, leaving David alone with the biggest decision of his life. The next day was torture. David went through the motions of working, but his mind was completely focused on the choice he had to make. Stay on Earth and live the rest of his life knowing that somewhere among the stars was the woman he loved, probably with no memory of him. Or leave everything behind for a love that transcended worlds. He thought about his life on Earth. His job was interesting but not fulfilling. He had a few friends but no one really close. His family lived far away and they rarely talked. He had never felt like he truly belonged anywhere or with anyone until he met Zara. But leaving Earth meant giving up his humanity in a way. He would still be David, but he would no longer be human David. He would be something new, something that had never existed before. As the day wore on, David realized that the choice wasn't really about what he was giving up. It was about what he was gaining. A chance to be with his soulmate, to explore the universe, to become part of something bigger than himself. That evening, David wrote a letter to his supervisor, explaining that he had to leave suddenly for a family emergency and wouldn't be coming back. It wasn't the truth, but it was close enough. He was leaving for family, the family he was choosing, to create with Zara. He packed a small bag with a few meaningful items: photos, his favorite book, a watch that had belonged to his grandfather. Then he drove out to the desert for what might be the last time as a human being. Zara was already there when he arrived, standing beside her ship in the moonlight. She looked as beautiful as ever, but David could see the sadness in her color-changing eyes. "You came," she said softly. "I couldn't stay away," David replied, walking toward her. "I've thought about it all day, and I realized that losing you would be worse than losing everything else. David, you must be absolutely certain. Once we begin the modification process, there is no going back. You will no longer be fully human." David took her hands in his. "I've never felt more human than when I'm with you. If being with you means becoming something new, then that's what I want." Tears that looked like liquid starlight rolled down Zara's cheeks. "The process will be painful. Your body will need to change in ways that human bodies were never meant to change. And even if it works, you will be alone among my people. The only human who ever tried to become something else for love. Will you be with me?" "Always," Zara promised. "No matter what happens, no matter what challenges we face, I will be with you." David looked up at the stars one last time as a human being. Somewhere up there was his future, uncertain and frightening, but also filled with love and possibilities he had never imagined. "Then let's go home," he said. As they walked toward Zara's ship together, David felt a mix of terror and excitement that took his breath away. He was about to become something that had never existed before, a human who chose love over everything else he had ever known. The moment David stepped inside Zara's ship, he knew there was no turning back. The door sealed behind him with a soft whisper, cutting him off from Earth forever. The inside of the ship was unlike anything he could have imagined. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing gently with soft light that responded to their movements. Everything was smooth and curved, like the inside of a giant pearl. "Are you ready?" Zara asked, taking his hand. Her touch was warm and reassuring, but David could feel her nervousness too. "As ready as anyone can be for something like this," David said, trying to sound braver than he felt. The transformation process began immediately. Zara led him to a room that looked like a cross between a medical facility and something from a dream. The walls were covered with crystals that hummed softly, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. "Lie down here," Zara said, gesturing to what looked like a bed made of the same glowing material as the ship's walls. "The process will take several hours. I will be with you the entire time." David lay down and immediately felt a warm, tingling sensation spreading through his body. At first it was pleasant, like soaking in a hot bath, but as the minutes passed, the sensation grew stronger and more intense. "What exactly is happening to me?" David asked, gritting his teeth as the tingling became almost painful. "Your cells are being restructured," Zara explained, holding his hand tightly. "Your lungs are adapting to breathe different air. Your heart is changing to pump blood more efficiently. Your bones are becoming stronger, and your lifespan is being extended to match mine." The pain grew worse over the next few hours. David felt like every part of his body was being taken apart and put back together. Sometimes he screamed, and sometimes he passed out completely. Through it all, Zara stayed beside him, speaking softly, in his mind, telling him stories about Lumina to distract him from the agony. "Tell me about our future," David gasped during one of the worst moments. "Tell me what our life will be like." "We will have a home in the crystal forests," Zara said, her mental voice like a cool breeze in his burning mind. "The trees there sing in the wind, and the light changes colors throughout the day. We will explore the floating mountains and swim in lakes that reflect the stars even during daylight." When David finally woke up, The pain was gone, but everything felt different. His vision was sharper, showing him colors he had never seen before. His hearing picked up sounds that had been invisible to human ears. When he breathed, the air tasted sweet and energizing. "How do you feel?" Zara asked, helping him sit up. David moved his arms and legs experimentally. He felt stronger, more alive than he ever had before. Different, but good different. Like I'm more myself than I was before, if that makes any sense. Zara smiled, and David could see relief flooding her features. "It makes perfect sense. You are still you, David, but now you are you in a way that can exist in my world." The journey to Lumina took 3 months. During that time, David learned about his new abilities and adapted to his transformed body. He could now understand Zara's language without translation, and he discovered that he could communicate telepathically with her even when they were in different parts of the ship. More importantly, he learned about the world he was going to call home. Zara showed him images of Lumina's crystal cities that floated among the clouds, powered by the thoughts and emotions of their inhabitants. She taught him about their history, their customs, and their beliefs. "My people value harmony above all else," Zara explained one day as they watched the stars streak past the ship's viewing portal. "Conflict is almost unknown on Lumina, but that also means that strong emotions like passion and intense love are unusual." "Will they accept me?" David asked. "Some will be curious about you, others may be frightened or disapproving, but you will not be alone. I will be with you, and there are others on Lumina who appreciate different perspectives." When they finally arrived at Lumina, David's breath was taken away. The planet was more beautiful than anything Zara had described. The cities really did float in the air, held up by forces he couldn't understand. The crystal buildings changed colors constantly, creating a light show that painted the sky in rainbow hues. But as beautiful as Lumina was, the first few months were difficult for David. Zara's people were kind but distant. They studied him like a fascinating specimen, asking polite questions about Earth and human behavior. Some were friendly, but David could sense that most of them saw him as an odd curiosity rather than a real person. The hardest part was feeling like an outsider in every conversation. Zara's people communicated as much through emotion and telepathy as they did through words, and David often missed the deeper meanings of what was being said. He felt clumsy and awkward, like a child trying to join adult conversations. "I don't think I belong here," David told Zara one evening as they sat in their new home, watching the sunset paint the crystal trees in shades of gold and purple. "You belong with me," Zara said firmly, "and I belong with you. That is all that matters. But your people will learn to appreciate what you bring to our world just as I have. David, you have already changed Lumina in ways you do not even realize." "What do you mean?" Zara smiled and gestured toward the window. "Look at the color of the city crystals tonight." David looked out at the floating city in the distance. The buildings were glowing with warm, passionate colors that pulsed like a heartbeat. "They're beautiful, but what does that have to do with me?" "Those colors represent the emotions of the people living there. Since you arrived, since word spread of our love story, something has awakened in my people. They are feeling things they have not felt for centuries: passion, longing, the courage to take risks for love." As the years passed, David found his place on Lumina. His human perspective brought new ideas to their advanced civilization. He introduced concepts of creativity and emotional expression that had been dormant in their culture for generations. Young Luminans began to create art that told stories of feeling rather than just beauty. Their music became more complex and emotionally rich. David also discovered that his transformation had given him abilities he never expected. He could sense the emotions of the crystal cities and sometimes influence them with his own feelings. When he was happy, the buildings would glow brighter. When he was thoughtful, they would shift to deeper, more contemplative colors. "You have become a bridge between worlds," Zara told him on their 5th anniversary. They were standing on a balcony overlooking one of the floating cities, watching the lights dance in response to a celebration below. A bridge to where? David asked. I can never go back to Earth. A bridge between what we were and what we could become. My people lived in perfect harmony, but we had forgotten what it meant to feel deeply. You reminded us that emotions are not chaos to be controlled, but beautiful forces that give life meaning. David smiled and put his arm around Zara. Looking out at the alien city that had become his home, he realized that he had never been happier. Yes, he missed Earth sometimes. He missed the smell of rain, the taste of his grandmother's cookies, the sound of human laughter. But he had gained so much more than he had lost. He had found love that transcended species and worlds. He had become part of a civilization that was learning to feel again because of his influence. And most importantly, he had discovered that home wasn't a place. It was being with the person who understood your soul completely. Do you ever regret your choice? Zara asked softly. David looked down at her, seeing his own reflection in her color-shifting eyes. Never. Love like ours doesn't come along often in any species. I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. As they stood together under alien stars, David knew that his story was far from over. He and Zara had the rest of their very long lives to explore the universe together, to continue bridging the gap between their worlds and to prove that love really could overcome any obstacle, even the vast emptiness of space itself. Their love had indeed made her his. But more than that, it had made him something he never could have imagined. A human who found his true home among the stars.